Here are 10 things that I've learned from studying church history and theology. 1. The church sang the Psalms. So in the Jewish times, it was common for them to sing the Psalms, especially leading up to Passover. They would sing Psalms 113 to 118, and the early church continued that tradition. Over time, it kind of went away, but the Reformed Presbyterians really brought it back during the Reformation, especially during the killing times when they were persecuted. They would often sing them in the fields, and this is something that is still practiced by Reformed churches today. Number 2, the role of councils. There have been many councils throughout church history, but the first few in the early church were important. During this time, a lot of heresies developed, so it was necessary for these councils to clarify doctrine. So, Nicaea clarified that Jesus is God and set out what Christians believe. Constantinople, the Holy Spirit is God. Ephesus and Chalcedon established Jesus' Christology, that Jesus is one person with two natures without mixing or separation. And so these councils were necessary to develop Christian doctrine, because even though the word Trinity or Christ's two natures are not in the Bible, they're still a fundamental part of the faith and can still be found taught in the Bible. Number 3, that the church has always baptized infants. Now, this part does get a bit controversial, but it is something that is seen throughout the history of the church, because the church believed that they were the continuation of the kingdom of Israel. And so just as infants were circumcised in the Old Testament, so infants were baptized in the New Testament on the basis of one or both believing parents. Augustine is known to have said that the custom of baptizing infants is not to be scorned, but is rather an apostolic tradition. Number 4, the church has always believed that communion is more than a symbol. Now, this does not mean that everybody has always believed transubstantiation, but rather the church has believed that in one way or another we receive the body and blood of Christ. The Lutherans believe that they physically receive it. Reformed Presbyterians and even historic Baptists believe that we spiritually feed on Christ during communion. So it is a remembrance, but it's also a partaking of Christ's body and blood during this meal. Number 5, Calvin did not invent predestination. So Calvinism actually originally referred to Calvin's view of the Lord's Supper, which was different than the Lutheran view, because Calvin believed in spiritual presence rather than physical presence. And so Calvinism over time just kind of became synonymous with predestination, but in reality it was taught way before Calvin existed. It's taught by Jan Hus, John Wycliffe, Thomas Aquinas, even Augustine, who is the first one to be known to really teach this outside of the Bible, where Paul talks about it. But it is in the Bible, and it is way before John Calvin. Number 6, that the church has did not believe in a pre-tribulation rapture for 1800 years. The whole concept of the rapture and dispensationalism didn't come about until the 1800s with John Nelson Darby. Historically, the church had different views on when Jesus would come back and when he would reign on earth, or if he would just reign over everything symbolically. But nobody believed in a pre-tribulation rapture before this happened. The Christians, they were focused on transforming the world around them and being salt and light in the world. Number 7, the church has always seen itself as a continuation of the kingdom of Israel. So I mentioned this earlier. So rather than being a replacement of Israel, which nobody believes that, it is the continuation, the fulfillments. We are an engrafted branch into Israel. And so now God doesn't have two covenant peoples. Rather, he has one, Jew and Gentile, made up of all who have faith in him. And so God has this covenant people, and anyone who is united to Christ is saved. Number 7, that the Reformation was not a revolution. It was not a break from the Catholic Church. None of the reformers until the Anabaptists really saw themselves as breaking away from the Catholic Church. Rather, their goal was to reform the Catholic Church, to keep what is pure and get rid of what was impure. And so, the reformers, they saw themselves as the continuation of the Catholic Church. And even today, Lutherans call themselves evangelical Catholics. Reformed Presbyterians call themselves Reformed Catholics. The only reason that there were different churches is because they were excommunicated, but they still kept a lot of things that they believed were true and genuine, such as real presence in communion, infant baptism, some of them icons and altars. But the point is that it was not a breakaway; it was rather a reformation of the church. Number 9, that there is much more to Reformed theology than just TULIP. So TULIP is a popular acronym that was developed in the 20th century based off of 5 points that come from the canons of Dort. But in reality, that only sums up the view of Calvinist predestination, and even then it doesn't do that very well. There is so much more to the Reformed tradition than just TULIP. You have spiritual presence in communion, you have infant baptism, covenant theology, God's sovereignty and covenants, psalm singing, hymns, and lots of wonderful things. And so TULIP is really a more modern thing, and in my opinion, I think we should stop using it. And lastly, number 10 is that Protestant churches use creeds, confessions, and catechisms. So I used to think that only the Catholic Church would recite creeds or use confessions or catechisms to teach their members about the faith. But I've discovered that the Protestants did in fact do the exact same thing. We use the Apostles' Creed, Nicene Creed, Chalcedonian definition, and each church has its own set of confessions, whether that's Westminster, Augsburg, 39 Articles, and we have our catechisms, which are Q&A in a Q&A format. So, for example, what is the chief end of man? To glorify God and to enjoy Him forever. And so these 10 things are by no means scratching the surface of what I've learned in studying church history, but they are 10 things that absolutely impacted my understanding and helped me to understand my faith more. And so I look forward to getting to learn more about this. So yeah, y'all have a great day and God bless.